Hello, I'm Richard with EV4U Custom Conversions. Well, today we're going to talk about some trailer related items. Any of you that have followed us for any time at all know that we spend a lot of time on the road, especially March through the end of October. Basically the show season as well as vacation season. And so when we're not on the road towing one of our vehicles to an event, we're picking up and delivering vehicles for customers. And then in our spare time, we like to travel with our fifth wheel trailer. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today, is an item that's related to fifth wheel trailer, and specifically landing gear. Now, those of you who own fifth wheel trailers or are familiar with fifth wheel trailers know that there's basically two types of landing gear, hydraulic and electric. And the electric ones use a lead screw jack. And so what I'm going to talk about today is not only maintenance of this type of setup, but failure of this type of setup. Now, it's one of those things that's, it's not if it will fail, it's when it will fail. These things are kind of heavy depending on the size of trailer that you have. Mine, for instance, has over 2,500 pounds of hitch weight. And that's a lot of work for a lead screw setup to do. And so it's a wear item, and they will fail eventually. So we're going to talk about what you can do when they fail, and we're going to talk about what you can do to avoid failure and to buy as much time as possible. So there's four main components to this type of system. And so one is the foot. And so let's take a look at what that looks like.
So here's the front of the trailer. And we have a foot that makes contact, whether it be rectangular, square, or round. But that's what makes contact with the ground. And then some of them have stabilizers, such as this one. So that's one of the main components.
The other main component is the jack itself, the telescopic piece. This is 3 sections. One is manually telescoped down and held with a pin. And then the other is the lead screw, which is in here, which raises and lowers the inner portion. So we'll take a closer look at that in a moment. The other two components are the gearbox. This, of course, mounts to your jack or leg, and then the motor and its associated gearbox. So those are the 4 main components. Now, only 3 of these will typically fail. The foot's pretty indestructible unless you forget to raise the landing gear or don't have it up enough and you catch it on something maybe. But odds are that will last the life of the trailer. These other 3 components probably will not. So what I do, and I've been trailering since 1979, so I have a few miles under my belt. And in those years, I've seen a lot of people have a lot of problems. And I've always been rather fortunate, but part of that is being prepared. And so that's what I always prescribe. So part of that being prepared is that I carry an extra motor, an extra gearbox, and an extra leg with me. Now, just this year, back in May, we were at an RV park out in the desert, and the guy next to us had a landing gear failure. One of his legs wouldn't go down. And so we had to call a mobile RV repair place, and they could not find the correct length for his trailer. They finally, by using a bunch of old parts that they had, they were able to build him one and take care of him. I didn't have the heart to ask him how much that set him back, but I'm sure by the length of time that that guy was working on his trailer, it was a pretty penny. So what happens if you're prepared? Well, if you're prepared, and like his was, he couldn't disconnect from his truck. The vehicle, you know, the truck and trailer were together, and he was trying to raise the trailer off the truck when the landing gear failed. So at that point, it's simply a matter of disconnecting your motor and your leg, dropping the old one out, putting a new one in, and away you go. Of course, you know, that depends on what the failure was. In his case, it was the lead screw piece that the lead screw goes through had stripped. So the lead screw's just spinning, but the leg's not going anywhere. But had it been a motor or the gearbox, if he'd been prepared, he would have simply done the repair himself. It would have taken, you know, 30 minutes or whatever, and at no additional cost other than, you know, having purchased the repair components in advance. My trailer has 2 gearboxes. It has 4 gearboxes and 4 motors, all identical. And so this, you know, not only for my landing gear, but for my levelers in the rear also. So the levelers aren't a have to, so I don't have an extra leg for the levelers. They're a shorter leg. But depending on what the problem was, I could probably steal some parts and make it work if I really wanted to. Like I said, a leveler, there's more than one way to level. If that were to fail, I've got bottle jack I could use or something. But these components, without them, you're just, you know, not going to be in a very desired situation. So by being prepared, we alleviate 90% of the hassle factor and, you know, probably 90% of the cost also. So now let's just talk about, there's really not much you can do to maintain and get these to last any longer than they're going to last. It's a sealed unit basically. I mean, this isn't sealed, the gearbox, but they're permanently lubricated. Not really anything you need to do to that. Same with this. You can take it apart and check it, make sure it's well lubricated. And I would recommend that. You know, make sure these things are maintained. The big one that you need to really make sure is lubricated is this one. This is the expensive part. This is the more involved one to replace. And this is the one that will affect, you know, a bigger aspect of your hassle factor. If this fails, it's much more of a problem than if either one of these failed. These are much easier to replace. So let's take a close-up of the landing gear leg here and what we can do to get the maximum life expectancy out of it. Okay, let's take a little close-up here, see if I can get this on camera. Now, the top, this one's held on with 2 screws. Some of them are just snapped in place. So what you have is 2 gears in the top here, and those will need to be lubricated from time to time. This is a brand new one, and I don't know if you can tell or not, but it's what I would consider kind of dry. And so I would lubricate that a little more before I'd put it in the service. Some of them come with a Zerk fitting. Those that are in my trailer from the factory do not. The Zerk fitting, you know, it's going to fill this whole cavity. It's going to take a fair amount of grease, but that'll keep you well lubricated. On my jacks on the trailer that are installed right now, I just take and put a bunch of grease in there by hand, and that takes care of you. The difficult part is doing the lead screw. Well, I say difficult. It's difficult if you don't have the right tools. So that's what we're going to look at right now. The tool that will allow you to lubricate this landing gear very quickly and easily, and thus buying you a lot more time out of this unit. And so it doesn't matter what type you have, as long as, you know, the lead screw type landing gear, this tool will take care of it. Now this one has a Zerk fitting here. It really doesn't do, there, see, right there. It really doesn't do a lot of good in this instance, and I'll show you how to really do it the right way. Okay, here's kind of the inside view of the landing gear. Kind of tough to get the lighting here without causing glare on the shiny surface. But there you can see it. Now when this is installed in the trailer and it's hanging vertically, it's not leaning up against the side like it is right now. It's actually hanging in the center of the tube. Okay, so that's what we want to lubricate. That's what we want to maintain good lubrication on. That and the piece that it goes through, and of course the lead screw will lubricate that as it passes through if it's well lubricated. So let's take a look at how we can lubricate this lead screw, which is located inside of this box tube here. Okay, so this is how we lubricate it with this tool right here. Basically a piece of clear tubing and with the Zerk fitting on the one end. And we have a cap. The cap's just for after use. You can put this cap on, and that prevents grease from coming out and making a mess. Kind of keeps it sealed. So this just slips over that lead screw. We fill the tube with grease. This fits fairly snugly around that lead screw, and so it forces grease through the threads, making for a nice, clean, lubricated lead screw. Now let's talk about the process to do this. So you would want to hook up your trailer to the truck so that you can raise your landing gear. And then once the landing gear is raised, you can remove the foot and the stabilizers if they're so equipped. So once the foot's removed, remove the pin. Mine has a permanently mounted pin. Would just need to have that clicked to where it's not, you know, passing all the way through, allowing access to our lubrication tool. Slide it in, grease it up good, remove the tool, place the cap on to keep dirt from getting to the grease and from the grease getting everywhere else. Then simply do it on the other side. You can very quickly and easily do your landing gear, put the foot back on, drop the landing gear, disconnect your truck, and be done. So the whole process can be done rather quickly. But this one exercise will give you a lot more mileage on your lead screw type fifth wheel landing gear. And it's something that I personally do and that I highly recommend. because it's about as cheap as insurance as you can get. So if you're interested, let me give you a little bit of a close-up here on this. So you can make your own, or we have them available on our website, ev4unow.com. Look for the address at the end of this video, and we'll ship one out to you. So, as always, hope you're enjoying the ride, and be prepared, and I'll talk to you next time.